Have you ever walked through your neighborhood, the one you've lived in for 10, 20, maybe 30 years, and felt a shift that you couldn't quite put your finger on? It's not just the cacophony of construction noise or the unfamiliar cars parked on the street. It feels like the fundamental rules of your city are being rewritten while you sleep. Your property tax bill might look stable on paper, and the deed is still firmly in your name, yet the community around you is transforming rapidly. Backyards that used to host family barbecues are morphing into rental units. Zoning variances that used to take years of city council meetings are being stamped for approval overnight by administrative clerks. Here is the financial reality that most residents are ignoring at their own peril. These changes are not random accidents of the market. They are not just the way things go. They are the calculated result of quiet, systemic shifts in property tax legislation and state-level housing mandates that systematically reward those who move capital early, while quietly punishing those who hesitate. Right now, specific California cities are accelerating faster than the rest, driven by a convergence of policy and capital. By the moment the average taxpayer realizes the landscape has shifted, the financial advantage has already evaporated. This isn't about fear-mongering, it is about fiscal timing. In real estate and tax planning, being early is the same as being right, and being late is the same as being wrong. Missing this window could be the most expensive mistake of your financial life. In this Tax Hack Pro report, we are deconstructing the California municipalities that are undergoing the most rapid policy-driven evolutions right now. We are looking at the mechanics of Proposition 19, the fallout of SB 9, and the ripple effects of local bond measures. Decoding these signals is critical for your net worth. But before we break down the list, if you want to stay ahead of the IRS, the Franchise Tax Board, and local assessors, make sure to subscribe to Tax Hack Pro for more and daily information about taxes, loopholes, and housing policies that directly impact your wallet. Don't let the system change without you knowing the rules. Number 1. Los Angeles: what happens to a metropolis when the rules of ownership shift beneath your feet without a market crash to warn you. Los Angeles is currently undergoing a transformation faster than almost any other jurisdiction in the state. This isn't driven by a sudden spike in property tax rates, Prop 13 still holds the line there, or a collapse in asset values. The driving force here is policy convergence. Over the last few fiscal cycles, we have seen a layering of property tax loopholes, wildfire-related tax base extensions, and aggressive accessory dwelling unit (ADU) laws that override local zoning objections. Individually, these policies seem bureaucratic, perhaps even boring, but collectively, they are reshaping the financial architecture of Los Angeles. The key shift is that Los Angeles has moved from a city of permission to a city of execution. Development projects that were stalled by red tape for decades are now bypassing local boards due to state, builders' remedy, threats, and density bonuses. The backyard, once just a leisure space, has become a tax-advantaged asset class for families trying to offset inflation. We are seeing homeowners utilizing disaster-related tax portability to keep their low tax bases while upgrading their living situations, effectively moving their tax advantages across zip codes. You don't need a tax assessor to tell you things are different. You can see it in the streetscape. The density of single-family zones is increasing. Parking is scarce. The demographic turnover is accelerating. For long-term residents, specifically the aging population, Los Angeles has become a landscape of financial trade-offs. On the asset side, you have access to world-class medical infrastructure, Cedars-Sinai, UCLA Health, which is a non-negotiable for retirees. However, the holding costs of staying in LA are rising. Even with Prop 13 protections keeping your tax bill predictable, the peripheral costs of living, insurance premiums that have doubled, utilities and service costs, are squeezing fixed incomes. Number 2, San Jose. San Jose operates differently. It doesn't have the chaotic volume of Los Angeles, but the structural changes here are arguably more deceptive because they are so quiet. The momentum in San Jose isn't coming from market panic. It is coming from a deliberate restructuring of tax and housing incentives aimed at the heart of Silicon Valley. State-backed density bonuses and transit-oriented development mandates are effectively bypassing local neighborhood preservation efforts. Simultaneously, property tax loopholes are allowing savvy owners to intensify land use without triggering a full market value reassessment of the primary structure. The result is a city that isn't sprawling outward, but densifying inward. Parcels near Caltrain and major tech hubs are being reimagined. Single-family lots are being eyed for multiplexes under SB 9 lot split provisions. Commercial zones are being rezoned for residential use with unprecedented speed. For the average homeowner, this feels like the city bypassed the debate stage and went straight to the build stage. For seniors, San Jose offers stability and familiarity, but that ground is moving. Renters are feeling the brunt of this as affordable, older units are replaced by high-yield transit housing tailored to tech salaries. The danger in San Jose isn't a sudden crash. It's the slow realization that you are the last person on the block playing by the old rules. The city rewards those who read the zoning maps and tax codes before the construction crews arrive. Number 3, San Diego. What happens when a coastal city hits its geographic limit and decides to turn inward? San Diego is the prime example of policy-driven densification. The engine here is an aggressive alignment with state housing mandates. San Diego has arguably gone further than any other major city in loosening restrictions on ADUs and lot splits, often offering bonus ADUs if certain affordability criteria are met. While property tax rules protect long-term owners from assessment spikes, the new economic incentive is clearly signaling, monetize your land. This shift is visceral in the suburbs. Garage conversions and backyard cottages are becoming standard asset management strategies rather than novelties. The rhythm of quiet cul-de-sacs is changing as population density increases. For those who bought in San Diego for its sleepy beach town stability, this rapid urbanization is a shock to the system. However, for the tax-savvy senior, this cuts both ways. The ability to add a rental unit without triggering a massive tax reassessment is a lifeline. It provides the cash flow needed to offset the sunshine tax of living in Southern California, but the pressure is relentless. As the highest and best use of land shifts from single-family home to multi-unit compound, institutional investors are circling, looking for lots large enough to maximize these new density codes. Number 4. Sacramento's rapid change is a direct downstream effect of California's tax portability laws. It is changing because it has become the primary landing zone for equity-rich Californians fleeing coastal costs. Under current tax laws, specifically Prop 19, older homeowners, 55 plus, can sell their high-value properties in the Bay Area or LA and transfer their lower tax base to a new home in Sacramento. This policy has created a capital migration corridor. Cash-heavy buyers are moving inland, buying up inventory, and keeping their property tax bills artificially low, often paying taxes based on a value from the 1980s while living in a home bought at 2025 prices. This isn't urban sprawl, it's a transfer of wealth into existing neighborhoods. The streets look the same, but the financial demographic is shifting toward older, wealthier transplants who are locking in their economic advantages. This influx creates a unique inflationary pressure known as imported inflation. Prices in Sacramento are being driven up not by local wages, but by Bay Area equity. For the locals and renters in Sacramento, this creates a distinct and painful pressure. The city offers a slower pace and solid health care, making it ideal for retirees, but the influx is straining infrastructure and pushing rents higher for those on fixed incomes who don't have coastal equity to deploy. Sacramento proves that tax laws don't just affect your bank account, they redirect human migration. The city isn't changing because it became trendy overnight. It is changing because it is the most tax-efficient harbor for Californians trying to preserve their lifestyle. When a city becomes a tax shelter for the middle class, the pace of change accelerates beyond local control. Number 5. Oakland. If the other cities are changing through construction, Oakland is changing through uncertainty and friction. Here, the collision of strict tenant protections, state housing mandates, and property tax dynamics creates a volatile mix. Oakland is experiencing a rapid turnover that isn't always visible in the skyline, but is felt in the deed transfers and the lease non-renewals. The gap between the tax-protected homeowner and the renter is vast here. Long-term owners are shielded from tax spikes by Prop 13, but they are living in a city where the rules of landlording feel like they are in constant flux. The eviction moratoriums of the past few years have reshaped the rental market, causing many small-time landlords to exit the market, often selling to developers or owner-occupiers, which actually reduces the rental stock. Number 6. Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa feels like a ticking clock, a city defined by the intersection of disaster recovery, tax law, and housing shortages. Following the devastating wildfires of recent years, the state implemented tax-based transfer rules allowing victims to rebuild or relocate without a tax penalty. This was meant as relief, but it has accelerated the financial sorting of the city. For retirees drawn to Sonoma County's pace, this introduces a chaotic variable. We are also seeing climate gentrification here, where the cost of fire insurance acts as a secondary property tax. Even if your official tax bill is low, an insurance premium of $5,000 or $10,000 a year forces a displacement that the tax code doesn't capture. The The lesson from Santa Rosa is that tax loopholes have expiration dates, either legally or practically, due to market forces like insurance availability. Timing is the only asset that matters here. Number 7. Riverside is changing because it is the last frontier of affordability that still connects to the coastal economy. It is being reshaped by the spillover of tax refugees who can't quite afford the coast but want to stay in the Southern California ecosystem. State mandates for housing are accelerating approvals here, turning suburban tracts into denser communities. The dynamic here is the clash between commuter culture and the new work-from-home reality. As coastal workers move inland, they bring higher incomes, pushing up asset prices. For many older Americans, Riverside is the compromise solution. It allows them to buy a home without resetting their financial progress entirely. However, this influx is straining the affordable label. Traffic, infrastructure load, and rental competition are all rising. Number 8. Fresno was once ignored by the coastal economy. Now it is being absorbed by it. The driving force is the math of retirement. As coastal prices hit the stratosphere, Fresno has become one of the few places where the numbers still work for fixed-income households. This migration is facilitated by tax rules that make holding property here predictable compared to other states like Texas or Florida, where property taxes can reset aggressively every year. However, this capital injection is changing the texture of the city. Cash buyers are squeezing out locals. Small multifamily developments are popping up in older neighborhoods. There is also the speculative element of the high-speed rail project. Even with delays, land speculation along the proposed corridor has shifted values. Number 9. Bakersfield is the pressure release valve for the entire state. It is changing not because of a tech boom, but because of a necessity boom. It remains one of the few places where the California property tax system protects a home price that is actually attainable for the average person. But even here, the pace is quickening. Out-of-town capital is flowing in. New construction is filling gaps that sat empty for decades. We are also seeing a transition in the local economy from purely oil-based to a mix of renewables and logistics, which changes the commercial tax base and impacts residential planning. For the older generation, Bakersfield offers a practical sanctuary, low costs, decent medical access, and tax predictability. But as we've seen elsewhere, once a city becomes the best value option, the value proposition erodes quickly. Longtime residents are feeling the squeeze of a market that is no longer strictly local. The inventory of affordable homes is being snapped up by investors looking for yield, turning owner-occupier neighborhoods into rental zones. Number 10. Palm Springs was designed as a static retirement haven, but tax and housing laws have turned it into a dynamic asset market. The shift here is the monetization of the retirement home. ADU laws and the explosion of short-term rental (STR) demand, despite heavy regulations and voter wars over STR caps, have changed the calculus. Homes are no longer just places to age in place. They are potential income streams. This changes the neighborhood dynamic from community to economy. For the senior resident, this can be unsettling. The tax bill remains low due to Prop 13, but the cost of services and the instability of the neighborhood composition are rising. You might live next to a quiet retiree one month and a bachelorette party rental the next. This creates a volatile tax environment where the city relies heavily on transient occupancy taxes, incentivizing policies that favor tourism over residency. Palm Springs is evolving from a place to retire into a place to invest, and those two goals are often in conflict. For the homeowner, the property value increase is great, but the quality of life shift is the hidden tax they didn't anticipate. This policy has created a capital migration corridor that is fundamentally rewriting the economic map of Northern California. We are witnessing a phenomenon where cash-heavy buyers are moving inland, aggressively buying up inventory, and crucially, keeping their property tax bills artificially low through Proposition 19 tax-based transfers. This isn't just urban sprawl in the traditional sense. It is a direct transfer of coastal wealth into existing, historically working-class neighborhoods. The streets might look the same, the oak trees are still there, the bungalows haven't changed, but the financial demographic inside those homes is shifting rapidly toward older, wealthier transplants who are locking in their economic advantages while the local workforce is priced out. For the locals and renters in Sacramento, this creates a distinct and suffocating pressure. We are seeing imported inflation in the housing sector. Prices are being driven up not by an increase in local wages or a booming local job market, but by coastal equity that has been cashed out and relocated. The city offers a slower pace, a delta breeze, and solid healthcare infrastructure. Sutter Health, UC Davis Medical Center, making it the ideal sanctuary for retirees. But this influx is straining infrastructure and pushing rents higher for those on fixed incomes who do not have $1 million Bay Area home to sell. Sacramento proves that tax laws don't just affect your bank account. They redirect human migration patterns. The city isn't changing because it became trendy overnight or because it suddenly became a cultural hub. It is changing because it is the most tax-efficient harbor for Californians trying to preserve their lifestyle in an inflationary environment. When a city becomes a tax shelter for the middle class, the pace of change accelerates beyond local control. The local city council can't zone their way out of a state-level tax incentive that encourages wealthy seniors to outbid local families. Number 5, Oakland. If the other cities are changing through construction and capital influx, Oakland is changing through uncertainty and regulatory friction. Here, the collision of strict tenant protections, state housing mandates, and property tax dynamics creates a volatile mix that makes long-term planning nearly impossible. Oakland is experiencing a rapid turnover that isn't always visible in the skyline. It's not just about cranes and high-rises. It happens quietly in the county recorder's office, in deed transfers, and in the lease non-renewals that signal a shift in ownership. The gap between the tax-protected homeowner and the renter is vast here, perhaps wider than anywhere else in the Bay Area. Long-term owners are shielded from tax spikes by Proposition 13, locking in tax bases from the 1980s or 90s. However, they are living in a city where the rules of the game feel like they are in constant flux. The eviction moratoriums of the past few years, combined with aggressive rent control ordinances, have fundamentally altered the risk profile of owning property in Oakland. For seniors renting in Oakland, the psychological toll is heavy. Despite strong rent controls on paper, the loopholes for substantial renovations and owner move-in (OMI) evictions create a persistent, gnawing fear of displacement. They know that their below-market rent makes them a target in a market seeking yield. Conversely, homeowners are sitting on appreciating assets protected by the tax code, yet they face a community that is fragmenting. Oakland offers great diversity, culture, and proximity to world-class medical access at Kaiser and Summit, but the financial unpredictability makes it a high-stakes environment. We are seeing a small landlord exodus, mom-and-pop owners selling out because they can no longer navigate the regulatory complexity. Who buys these properties? Often, it's owner-occupiers from San Francisco looking for more space, the donut effect, or institutional investors who can afford the lawyers to navigate the tenant laws. This changes the fabric of the neighborhood. It removes rental inventory from the market and replaces it with owner-occupied housing or high-end rentals, further squeezing the supply for lower-income seniors. It is a city where standing still feels risky, and the policy landscape rewards those who can navigate complex regulations rather than just those who have high incomes. In Oakland, your tax bill might be low, but your regulatory risk tax is higher than anywhere else. Number 6, Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa feels like a ticking clock, a city defined by the intersection of disaster recovery tax law, housing shortages, and the looming insurance crisis. This city sits at the epicenter of California's climate gentrification. Following the devastating wildfires of recent years, the state implemented tax-based transfer rules allowing victims to rebuild or relocate without a tax penalty. This was meant as humanitarian relief, and it was necessary, but economically, it has accelerated the financial sorting of the city. In Santa Rosa, your financial fate depends entirely on your speed and your liquidity. Those who utilized insurance payouts and tax transfers immediately locked in their recovery, often building larger, more resilient homes on their original lots while keeping their pre-fire tax assessment. Those who were delayed, whether by health issues, fights with underinsured policies, or simple hesitation, found that construction inflation and shifting policies eroded their position. Lumber prices tripled, labor shortages spiked, and suddenly the insurance payout wasn't enough to rebuild the home that was lost. We are seeing a bifurcated recovery. You can have two neighbors on the same street. One who rebuilt with a protected tax base and a modern, fire-hardened home worth $1.2 million, and another who is priced out of their own lot, forced to sell the dirt to a developer because they couldn't bridge the gap between their insurance check and the cost of a contractor. For retirees drawn to Sonoma County's pace and wine country appeal, this introduces a chaotic variable, fire insurance. This is the shadow tax of Santa Rosa. Even if your property tax bill is capped by Prop 13 at $4,000 a year, if your fire insurance premium jumps to $10,000 a year, or if you're dropped to the FAIR plan, your monthly carrying costs explode. The lesson from Santa Rosa is that tax loopholes have expiration dates, either legally or practically. due to market forces like insurance availability. Timing is the only asset that matters here, and the window for an affordable retirement in the region is being shut not by the tax assessor, but by the actuary tables of insurance companies. Number 7, Riverside. Riverside is changing because it is the last frontier of affordability that still connects to the robust coastal economy of Southern California. It is being reshaped by the spillover of tax refugees, families and retirees who can't quite afford the coast but want to stay in the Southern California ecosystem, close to grandkids and familiar networks. State mandates for housing are accelerating approvals here, turning what were once sprawling suburban tracts and citrus groves into denser, master-planned communities. But there is a hidden cost in Riverside that many retirees miss until it's too late: Mello-Roos. While older neighborhoods have standard tax rates, the new developments springing up to house this influx often come with heavy Mello-Roos/CFD special assessments to pay for new infrastructure. A retiree might sell a home in OC and buy in Riverside for half the price, thinking they've won the lottery, only to find their total tax rate is effectively doubled due to these local bonds. For many older Americans, Riverside is the compromise solution. It allows them to buy a home without resetting their financial progress entirely. It's the arbitrage play. Trade the ocean breeze for a larger lot and a preserved bank account. However, this influx is straining the affordable label. Traffic congestion has turned the commute to OC or LA into a nightmare, trapping residents. Infrastructure load on water and power is nearing capacity. Rental competition is rising as priced-out coastal workers move inland. Riverside is no longer a sleepy outpost. It is an active participant in the state's density experiment. The window to buy here with traditional expectations, large lot, low tax, quiet street, is closing as the market prices in the new demand. The inland empire is rapidly becoming just an extension of the coastal empire, but with higher temperatures and increasingly higher costs. Number 8. Fresno. Fresno was once ignored by the coastal economy, viewed merely as the agricultural heartland. Now it is being absorbed by the California housing crisis. The driving force here is the brutal math of retirement. As coastal prices hit the stratosphere, where a starter home is $1.5 million, Fresno has become one of the few places where the numbers still work for fixed-income households. A retiree with a $2,500/month pension can live like royalty in Fresno, whereas in San Francisco, they would be below the poverty line. This migration is facilitated by California's tax rules that make holding property here predictable compared to other low-cost states like Texas. In Texas, your property taxes reset every year to market value, which can price retirees out of their own homes. In Fresno, thanks to Prop 13, once you buy, your tax costs are largely fixed. This tax stability is a massive draw that real estate agents rarely explain properly. However, this capital injection is changing the texture of the city. Cash buyers from the coast are squeezing out locals. We are seeing bidding wars in neighborhoods that haven't seen appreciation in decades. Small multifamily developments are popping up in older neighborhoods under new state ADU laws. There is also the speculative element of the high-speed rail project. Even with its endless delays, land speculation along the proposed corridor has shifted values, anticipating a future where Fresno is a commuter suburb of San Jose. For the retiree stretching a 401k, Fresno is a second chance at stability. It's a lifeboat, but for the legacy resident, it means increased competition for resources and housing. The affordability arbitrage, the gap between local wages and housing costs, is narrowing rapidly as more people do the math. Fresno is transitioning from a city that feeds the world to a city that houses the displaced, and those are two very different economic models. Number 9, Bakersfield. Bakersfield is the pressure release valve for the entire state of California. It is changing not because of a tech boom or a cultural renaissance, but because of a necessity boom. It remains one of the few places where the California property tax system protects a home price that is actually attainable for the average person earning a median income. But even here in the southern tip of the Central Valley, the pace is quickening. Out-of-town capital is flowing in, hunting for yield. Investors are buying up starter homes to turn them into rentals, banking on the fact that people will always need a place to live, and Bakersfield is the last stop on the affordability train. New construction is filling gaps that sat empty for decades, transforming the landscape. We are also seeing a transition in the local economy. As California pivots away from oil, Bakersfield is attempting to reinvent itself as a logistics and renewable energy hub. This shifts the commercial tax base and impacts residential planning. For the older generation, Bakersfield offers a practical sanctuary, low costs, decent medical access, which is improving as hospital networks expand inland, and tax predictability. But as we've seen elsewhere, once a city becomes the best value option, the value proposition erodes quickly. Longtime residents are feeling the squeeze of a market that is no longer strictly local. When a house in Bakersfield receives offers from investors in Los Angeles, the local economy is broken. The inventory of affordable homes is being snapped up, turning owner-occupier neighborhoods into rental zones managed by absentee landlords. The street looks the same, but the community ownership has left the building. Number 10, Palm Springs. Palm Springs was designed as a static retirement haven, a place of mid-century modern homes, golf courses, and quiet winters. But tax and housing laws have turned it into a dynamic and sometimes volatile asset market. The shift here is the monetization of the retirement home. The explosion of short-term rental (STR) demand driven by platforms like Airbnb and VRBO has changed the calculus of ownership. Despite heavy regulations and fierce voter wars over STR caps in neighborhoods, the market has spoken. Homes in Palm Springs are no longer just places to age in place. They are viewed as potential income streams or yield-generating assets. This changes the neighborhood dynamic from community to economy. Neighbors aren't just neighbors, they are competitors for noise, parking, and peace. For the senior resident, this can be unsettling. Their tax bill remains low due to Prop 13, but the cost of services and the instability of the neighborhood composition are rising. You might live next to a quiet retiree one month and a bachelorette party rental the next. This shifts the psychological value of the home, even if the financial value skyrockets. We are witnessing a fundamental restructuring of the California dream. It is no longer about finding a nice place to settle and watching the sunset. It is about navigating a complex web of tax portability, zoning density, and asset monetization. The cities we listed, from the dense infill of Los Angeles to the desert sprawl of Palm Springs, aren't just changing cosmetically. Their financial DNA is being rewritten by state mandates like SB 9 and capital flows driven by Prop 19. And here is the brutal truth that no politician, city planner, or real estate agent will tell you to your face because it's too uncomfortable. The window to secure your position is closing. We are moving toward a future where there are only two types of residents in California, and then there is the second group, those who are slowly, quietly leased out of their own existence. These are the renters on fixed incomes in Oakland, watching the buildings flip to new owners. These are the locals in Sacramento priced out by Bay Area cash. These are the homeowners in Santa Rosa who waited too long to rebuild. This is Tax Hack Pro signing off. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and watch your tax bill. It's the most important scorecard you have. Don't forget to like and subscribe for your daily dose of financial truth. See you in the next deep dive.